There are some problems here. Sorry, big time.
I'm so upset. Oh my God.
Drop it like it's Jeffrey Goldberg from a Signal chat. Power panel. Cenk, John Idarola, Maz Jabrani with you guys. All right, so John, of course, damage report. Maz, Rebel headquarters. Maz also a comedian. Make sure you're checking him out. You guys know all this. Okay, we got some killer stories for you guys. Unfortunately, sometimes literally. The first two have to do a little bit. Well, the second one's about Israel and a massive war crime that they're planning. Later in the story, later in the show, we're going to tell you about how Trump is ripping off his own voters. He's already taken about $8 billion off them, kind of. We'll explain what we mean by that a little later in the show, or as the kids call it these days, podcast. But we're gonna start with a story that has to do with Israel, but really is about America. So let's start with that one, John.
Yeah, we're gonna be starting off with some pretty messed up video. Why don't we jump into it?
This Ramesh Turk is a Turkish national who's maintaining an F1 visa as a PhD student at Tufts University. She was arrested yesterday, you'll see it on camera, after writing an opinion essay criticizing the university's response to the demands that Tufts, quote, acknowledge the Palestinian genocide, divest from companies with direct or indirect ties to Israel. And I imagine there's more to her case. I love the message it's sending to other students causing unrest.
It is sending a message.
Yeah, I think disappearing a PhD student off the streets around a university because you disagreed with an op-ed they wrote over a year ago certainly sends a message. Not the sort of message that I think most people are loving right now. So we're gonna get to that, but Cenk, what do you think he's implying with that?
I think he's implying that you better watch yourself. If you criticize Israel, masked men will show up in the middle of America and whisk you away in a van to a secret location. And God knows if you'll ever get out. So that's definitely the message that they want to send. And there's Brian Kilmeade on Fox News cheerleading in it. Yes, oppression and tyranny. And by the way, not even for this country, for a totally different country. It's amazing how they do that. But one of the big questions we have, and it's in the live chat poll too, is this going to make any Trump voters realize that this is a freedom of speech issue and that they should actually stand up for this person? Or are they just gonna be like, oh, whatever, foreigner. We never meant speech anyway. Speech, who cares? I mean, against Israel. No, you're not allowed to do that. I don't know. Let's find out, John.
Yeah, maybe they have a defense mechanism though that we just saw trotted out by Brian Kilmeade, because sure, it looks bad when someone who's just been quietly working on their doctorate for the better part of a decade writes an op-ed and you kidnap her. That sounds bad, but don't worry, he imagines there's more to it. That's Brian Kilmeade's response. He sees tyranny on video. No evidence of criminality, no allegations of crimes being committed, but he imagines there's more to it. It's nice when you give the dictator the benefit of the doubt. Well, anyway, what's interesting and especially ironic about this when it comes to Brian Kilmeade is Brian Kilmeade has talked about effectively what we saw there, a Gestapo, people going around, maybe not even with the uniforms on and enforcing the will of the authoritarian leader, only of course, he wasn't talking about Donald Trump doing something like that. No, back in 2022, he said that under Joe Biden, the IRS would hunt down and potentially kill taxpayers. Watch.
Before the IRS took it down yesterday, there was a posting, watch this, on their website that listed the job requirements for a special agent's position. The major duties require agents to, quote, carry a firearm and be willing to use deadly force if necessary. A little like James Bond, but instead of hunting down evil maniacs, these agents hunt down and kill middle-class taxpayers that don't pay enough. It's Joe Biden's new army.
I love that he needed to clarify that in this nightmare, it's at least middle-class taxpayers that are being gunned down. If it's poorer taxpayers, that apparently doesn't even merit a conversation for Brian Kilmeade. And we all know that the last couple of years, the IRS did rack up quite the kill count of taxpayers. So he was right there, obviously. We got to give credit where credit is due. But it is funny when like you know, under Joe Biden, you fantasize about this sort of thing happening. And now you're seeing it. And rather than being consistent or even maybe just like briefly pushing back and saying, hey, I don't agree with her op-ed, but like, could you at least allege that she threw a bottle or something? Maybe Molotovs? No, nothing like that. He imagines there's probably more to it. And to go back to the original point that he had made about the message being sent, which I do agree, it's sending one. Lawrence Jones, also of Fox, apparently likes that message. He wants speech to be chilled. Take a look.
I am concerned about free speech. I am a free speech absolutist. And so I wonder, what is the criteria here? Should we be deporting people who say criticize America and American policies? What's the line? Or is it only if you criticize Israeli government policy? So there are a lot of really good people right now who are very concerned about the chilling effect this could have, not just on these green card holders and these people on visas, but what's the message to American citizens about free speech?
So I would just say this, Rachel. I see your point. I see how it could be chilling. But I want chills to run down the spines of not only terrorists, but people that are residents here. You're a visitor here. You don't have the right, be on your best behavior here. And what we're dealing with is people that don't love the country, people that have radical ties, and I think they're trying to use our laws against us at the time.
I love the idea of using the laws against us, like the rights given to you by the law or the Constitution. That's not supposed to be for you. That's you using it against us. I briefly was going to have the uncomfortable experience of giving Rachel Campos Duffy credit for something, but don't worry. Once he said he wants them to apparently live in terror that if they post the wrong thing online, they could be deported, she immediately agreed with it. So it seemed as if she was being kind of consistent about free speech. She's an absolutist after all. But again, as soon as like the prospect of somebody who cares about Palestinian kids being bombed, living in terror, suddenly the absolutism fell apart and she was totally fine with it. What do you think?
Yeah, so lots to talk about here. First of all, in terms of Duffy, I think the only reason why she even said that comment is not because she genuinely thinks it. And to be fair to her, if she does, great. And I wish that she would have stuck up to, against her colleague who were like, yeah, I mean, you want to take away the speech rights of people living in America to serve Israel, and then America could be second or maybe third or eighth. And you know what? And well, let's terrorize them because they're the terrorists. You literally just said you wanted to terrorize people, by the way. Let's just note that. So, but the reason I think she's saying it is because a lot of right-wingers are now going, wait, not a lot, but some. And remember, they don't care about the left at all. They don't care about any of the rest of us. But when some folks in MAGA are like, wait, we're rounding up people for if they criticize a different country. But by the way, again, I emphasize this every, you can criticize America all day long. If she wrote an op-ed about how America was the worst thing on the planet Earth, she'd be perfectly fine. Norway, have at it. Saudi Arabia, no problem. Israel, round them up. And so this idea that it's not Israel or you're not allowed to say that it's Israel is, I mean, it's a very sad joke. Green New Dealer Dragon wrote in on Twitch, and I love doing the show with our members. I love their questions, their comments, etc. Be part of that, hit the join button below. They wrote in, do we know where exactly the Israeli black site is in Louisiana? That's a literal question. They're making these people disappear into a black site in Louisiana and not saying where they are. So Israel has some sort of dungeon in Louisiana that they're running. I mean, of course, we're paying for it, we're running it, etc. But we're doing it on behalf of Israel. But don't worry, they're only kidnapping people with student visas, well, also legal residents, green card holders. But it's not like they're coming out of an unmarked van with unmarked clothes and masks on, like they're some sort of terrorists looking to terrorize, as Fox News is bragging about now. Oh no, right, that's exactly what they're doing. And then he says, Jones does, we want them to be on their best behavior. So criticizing Israel in an op-ed is not your best behavior. Why? When did that become illegal? Most important thing for you guys to understand, Supreme Court precedent is that people who are in the country legally, no matter what their citizenship status is, have the same protections as American citizens on constitutional rights, including freedom of speech. So if the courts now take away that right from people who hold student visas or who have green cards and are legal residents here in America, that means they're also beginning to chip away at that right for US citizens. And soon, no one will be allowed to criticize Israel. And if you do, you'll be snapped up in the streets and taken to a black site that they're running in Louisiana. So, and by the way, supervising before I kick it over to Maz, is that what John mentioned there in the beginning about, he imagines they have a good reason for it, is what I'm seeing all over online. For the folks who are being hypocritical about this in the right wing, free speech for me, but not free speech for you, right? Free speech against America, but not free speech against Israel, right? For those guys, their excuse that I see 1,000 times. By the way, whether it's this issue or other issues like Trump's corruption, which we're going to talk about later in the show. Well, I'm sure he has a good reason. I'm sure there's secret evidence. Our country doesn't run on secret evidence and secret black sites. Our country runs on freedom of speech and serving this country and not another country. I'm so curious whether Americans are going to rebel at some point, or if they're going to say, no, running a tyrannical. That was bad. Tyrannical, thank you. Running a tyrannical government on behalf of a foreign country is okay, and that's what makes America great again. That's what gives us our freedoms. And by the way, you want to talk about cancel culture? When the Israeli thought police kidnap you in the middle of the street, I'm pretty sure you're getting canceled. Moss.
Yeah, well, first of all, that clip you guys showed of Kilmeade talking about the IRS agents and how there was the requirement for weapons or carrying weapons. They're IRS agents. Nobody likes them. So they probably need the weapons for self-defense. That's going all the way back to that. But what you guys are saying is so spot on. I come from Iran, and when I posted this clip on my Instagram page, a lot of people from Iran were saying, oh my gosh, this reminds me of what happens in Iran. And in Iran, they stop people and they go, you insulted God. And now they're saying you insulted Israel. And the problem is that that America is supposed to be a tolerant society that allows people to express their opinions. And as you said, a lot of people are saying, oh, well, there must be other reasons. That's the other thing that I've seen that's been interesting is, again, on my Instagram page, there's some people that are immigrants to this country who are turning around and going, well, she deserves it. They should kick her out. And I'm going, first of all, you're not safe, because originally the idea was that they're gonna only go after undocumented immigrants who've committed crimes. And then it was undocumented immigrants. And then it was now green card holders. And now they want to get rid of birthright citizenship. So the fact is, if Marco Rubio decides that you said something that he doesn't like, he could say, you know what? Because he called them, he said, we're going after all these lunatics. They call you a lunatic the same way in Iran. They say you are against religion, and they disappear you. And that's the kind of stuff that happens in Russia and in Iran and in China and other totalitarian states. And now it's happening right in front of our eyes. So for people, even if they don't agree with these people's opinions, they are giving up. We are that line of people, as we're seeing the dictatorship and authoritarianism take over this country. It happened in Iran. I saw it, I was a kid then, but I've gone back and looked at, there was a lot of people who were like, oh, no, it's not gonna be that bad, not gonna be that bad, not gonna be that. And before you know it, there's a million things you can't say. And if you look at the game plan, and if you go to Project 2025, which people kept warning people about, a lot of those things are being implemented. And pretty soon, if you go say something about, Jesus or the flag or guns, they might say, hey, you know what, that's un-American of you, and we're gonna make you disappear. So It is, everyone should be upset about this.
And then look, some of them might think, well, I mean, he would never do that. But if he did, well, then a judge would stop them or whatever. They were ordered not to move her, and they defied it. Judge said, don't move her, just as they have in other cases too, just as they did with the Venezuelans. And the White House told them to kick rocks. And they just didn't abide by the orders of these judges. And they're already like champing at the bit to send American citizens for all sorts of different crimes outside of the country. We had Trump like talking about how those who deface Teslas or whatever could end up going to that Salvadoran prison. And if they do that, what do we think? Brian Kilmeade is going to be aggrieved. Jesse Waters is going to do a monologue about how, oh no, I was MAGA, but this has gone too far. This is an utterly lawless regime. Donald Trump did his executive order a couple days ago to make it significantly harder to register to vote. They're trying to wipe out literally millions of voters, as many of his strongest backers are still openly talking about him running for a third term. This is an utterly lawless, like we throw in these terms of this looks dictatorial. I don't know what about this administration at this point does not. They don't care, like they control Congress, but are still ignoring it. He could get anything he wants out of the Republican Congress. He's still telling them to F off because he doesn't want to even set a precedent that Congress matters. So that if the Democrats ever take control of it, he doesn't want that to matter. He wants only him and Elon Musk to decide what matters. No Congress, no judges, no anything. And so that's what we're seeing. And as you said, Maz, Marco Rubio, he's totally in now on this whole thing. I don't know if you'd asked him 5 years ago if he would have thought that any of this is acceptable, but this is the price for his position. He wants some power. So if that means that you don't have rights anymore, he's totally fine with that, as he's going to demonstrate in this clip.
It might be more than 300 at this point. We do it every day. Every time I find one of these lunatics, I take away their visa.
You're saying it could be more than 300
sure,
visas?
I hope. I mean, at some point, I hope we run out because we've gotten rid of all of them. But we're looking every day.
They're looking every day. And let me just say, I imagine, look, I'm like Brian Kilmeade, maybe I deserve millions of dollars a year. I imagine that if they had found evidence that any of those 300 had committed actual crimes, done horrible things, or even posted horrible things, really scary, triggering language, they would cite it. They would cite some evidence, some act, something criminal, destruction, assault, hate speech. What do we got? Bupkis. We got literally nothing. The most they can say is there was an op-ed. Doesn't even mention Hamas. But still, you're affiliated or whatever with the organization that you didn't even talk about in that op-ed. And once we've weeded out all of them, the people that we disagree with, the people who are exercising their speech and saying politically incorrect things, those who need to be canceled in the most ultimate, potentially fatal for some of them way, well then he'll finally stop, I guess. And maybe that's 300, maybe that's 3,000, 30,000. I don't know how many foreign-born students there are. Maybe eventually they'll work through all of them. But that's what Marco Rubio is now totally on board for.
Yeah, so one of the most scary parts of the story and important parts of the story is that from time to time they ignore the courts. They're doing trial tests, like what if we ignore the courts for 24 hours? What if we ignore them when they give a verbal order and not a written order? What if we just delay telling them for a long time? So the reason we were saying like they made them disappear into a black site in Louisiana is because in the beginning the judge told them, where did you take Mahmoud Halil? And they're like, not gonna tell you. What do you mean you're not going to tell me? No, you're going to tell me. So eventually we found out that it was a prison in Jena, Louisiana, and presumably they took her there as well. But we had to drag that out of them. And then in this case, the judge said, do not bring her to Jena, Louisiana. And they're like, yeah, we're going to do it anyway. Who cares? And it started with the gang members that they were taking to El Salvador. When they ignored that order, turn the plane around, don't take him there, the court told them. Now, that plane was filled with a lot of terrible gang members, and so people are like, oh good, the gang members. By the way, it turns out there's at least, it appears, one innocent person there who is a hair and makeup artist. Oops, but he's being tortured right now in El Salvador. And he got there because the Trump administration ignored court orders. Do you know what happens when they set that precedent, as they've done now 3 times? It doesn't apply to just people with student visas. It applies to all of us, all Americans. I told you they're gonna chip away at all of our rights. So once you start ignoring court orders, what if the court gives an order about an American? You can ignore that too. Of course, or residents that are here legally, etc. And so Rubio, no, John, I think he loves this. I think he was waiting to serve Israel his whole life. He's been serving them in the Senate, couldn't wait to serve them as Secretary of State. He's like, now I get to round up people on behalf of one of my largest donors. Because guys, remember, these guys don't serve Israel. They serve their donors, no matter who the donor is. Musk is the donor, let's bring out the Teslas in front of the White House. Or by the way, if you're Joe Biden and you got some donors that make chips, hey, let's pass the CHIPS Act, there's $50 billion to you guys. Hey, you got donors who are drug companies, oh yeah, you know what? We won't even negotiate drug prices. You set whatever price you like and bankrupt hundreds of millions of Americans. Biden loves it, Bush loves it, Trump loves it, Rubio loves it. So it's just supporters of Israel happen to be giant donors in this country. So Rubio's like, oh, my donor, yes, who would you want me to arrest? Do you think he wouldn't arrest someone for Lockheed Martin or ExxonMobil or Pfizer? He'd arrest people for that in a second. He'll do anything his donors tell him to do because the Supreme Court legalized bribery. And what does that do? It doesn't take away rights for some people. It takes away all of our rights for all of us, okay? And finally, Maz said, soon they'll be saying, hey, you said something against Jesus, you said something against America, and round you up. Isn't it amazing that Israel was above Jesus in America? Like they come for you first because you went after the most important thing in America. Golden Israel. Israel above all. And it reminds me of a joke that you do, Maz, on your routine you did a long time ago. It was actually one of my favorite jokes of all time. When you went to the Middle East, people criticized you for doing comedy tour there, you come back, and you did the joke about like, oh, if I criticize Allah, God there, they take me off the stage, you're right. And here, if I'm doing a show for Comedy Central and I criticize Tide, which is one of their sponsors, they take me off stage. So you know what that means? Tide is God. So that was Maz's original joke. But now replace Tide with Israel. Because in Iran, you'll get taken off the stage if you criticize God. Here in America, you'll get taken off the streets if you criticize Israel. So Israel is our politicians' God.
Absolutely, and what's, just to put a little button on that as well, the hypocrisy of Rubio saying we're getting rid of all these lunatics. Meanwhile, the people who stormed the Capitol on January 6th, many who were lunatics were set free. They are actually people who actually threatened American democracy. They have been set free, and these other people who have just simply written an op-ed piece or expressed their opposition to the war in Gaza, they are being arrested. And again, if you have real proof of them having done some violence or some sort, then bring it and let's proceed. But they have not. They've just said, oh, I imagine there's more reason to this.
Yeah, okay, super last thing, because that's such a good point. So for whatever it's worth, and my friends don't represent everybody, but this is my anecdote. Every Jewish friend I know is horrified by this, right? So like, what are you doing? What are you doing? This is crazy, just totally nuts, right? Don't do this. So remember, the original reason was, we're combating anti-Semitism. And anti-Semitism is free speech, but not anymore because etc. But we're worried about, not about Israel, no. It's about anti-Semitism. But now, I think a huge percentage of Jewish Americans are objecting, right? And they're like, now they switched it because she didn't say anything anti-Semitic. Like Mahmoud Khalil didn't say anything anti-Semitic. In fact, he spoke out against anti-Semitism on TV, right? But in her case, it wasn't even on the map. She wrote an op-ed about Israel and doing an economic boycott of Israel. She didn't mention Jews, she didn't mention anything. Now the goalpost has moved all the way to, yeah, fine, okay, the anti-Semitism was obviously a ruse. We don't care about it at all. We just care about protecting Israel because we get tons and tons of donor money from people who support Israel. So we just took to legalize bribes and we'll arrest anybody if they pay us enough money. That's the current state of America. That's not a problem for Israel. That's a problem for us. We've got to regain our democracy. And it isn't just being against Trump. It's actually getting money out of politics. It's ending the corruption. That's the only thing that could save this country. All right.
I think we should probably take our first break.
Yep, gotta take a break. When we come back, now we are gonna turn to Israel itself and the horrors they have planned for the Palestinians. They've taken it to a whole new level. Unfortunately, we got that story for you guys, but you gotta hear it because later they'll deny it. As they do it, I want you to hear it first here. We'll be back.
Randy Arguay.
TYT. Let's go to comments on TYT.com where our beautiful members are. Art Guy says, Moz is here, everything's gonna be fine. I actually agree with that. Moz is, not only is he smart, great, funny, all that stuff, but you have a weird calming effect.
Yes, I'm a guru of sorts, my friend.
I don't know about that, but you do have a calming effect. All right, Eclectic Miscellaneous says, happy Friday, TGI-TYT. Thank God it's the Young Turks. That's awesome, thank you, Eclectic. Cabbage says, you can tell who's in charge by the one you can't offend. And by the way, that goes to the point of Moz's original joke too, which is you can't offend the sponsors if you're on television, which is absolutely right. And if you're a politician, you can't offend the donors. And these are, by the way, all things totally denied by mainstream media. Like if you say this on cable news, they're like, I can't believe he said that Israel is making them do this because they're taking donor money. That's the most obvious thing in the world. All right, anyways, Little Mac McChee says, no idea if Anna's here, but if so, great job, Anna. On Piers Morgan, you were epic, okay? So she's not here today, but she does often watch the show on Fridays, and so we appreciate that. He also wrote back in and said, I promise I'm not gay. Okay, this is a hilarious beginning. But then he says, but man, John is literally the only guy I've ever seen in my life, which I'm like, man, he looks more awesome with glasses. Look at that. Compliments like crazy to you guys. Good job. All right, wonderful. Compass 1981 says, John, here we go, finally, criticism. John, it's Tesla. You said it correctly before on the damage report. Now you're going back to calling it Tesla. Get it right, John. Okay. And Bloated Ego says, this reminds me about arresting people off the streets in Portland years ago. And remind me who was president then. Yep, that was Trump. And those were American citizens. And they got taken into a van by masked guys. Better Dude says, Rubio, doesn't sound American to me. Send him to El Salvador. Well, if we can send people in a lawless way to El Salvador, you can send anybody. All right, Late Bloomer 66 says, Maz Drabani, one of my favorite Power Panel hosts, and John Idol, a Dragon Daddy. Yep. Kenny Ingram writes in, and YouTube members, Cenk, thank you for being for open hearts and open minds. That's why I've been tuning into TYT for over 10 years, going from student to teacher. Love that. Kenny, thanks for appreciating that. Here, we all try really hard, in fact, it's in our mission statement, to boldly pursue truth. But nobody gets to say, I've arrived at the truth, and anyone who doesn't agree is immoral and needs to be sent to a re-education camp. So we're not sending anybody to any camps, and there's gonna be no re-education. We're all gonna have a conversation, and you guys are gonna make up your own mind. Make it make sense, says Cenk, even Ben Shapiro acknowledged today that Trump administration is playing with fire and are in danger of appearing to be anti-free speech. Thanks for being 10 steps ahead. TYT is always winning. You're awesome for saying that, brother, it's great. And by the way, you know they've gone so far over the top. If Ben Shapiro's like, maybe we shouldn't kidnap people for Israel. Wow, that's how over the top they are. We'll be back.
Tren de Aragua. Tren de Aragua. Tren de Arguay.
right, back on TYT, Cenk, John, and Moz with you guys. Also, Amelia W., bit of an American hero for hitting the join button below on YouTube. An Atmosphere 404 upgraded membership there. Love you for it. You could also upgrade through the join button. And Ramon gifted 10 Young Turks memberships. Love this community. John.
Well, you're probably not going to love this story, but let's jump into it.
You can't live in Gaza right now, and I think we need another location. I think it should be a location that's going to make people happy. If we can get a beautiful area to resettle people permanently in nice homes and where they can be happy and not be shot, not be killed, not be knifed to death like what's happening in Gaza, I don't think people should be going back to Gaza.
Would Palestinians have the right to return to Gaza if they left while the rebuilding was happening?
It would be my hope that we could do something really nice, really good, where they wouldn't want to return.
How many people are you thinking about?
All of them.
Okay, so if you push past the buffoonish, clownish way that he talks, that's just an absolutely massive war, crime against humanity that he's describing there. I mean, that is casually discussing genocide in a way that I don't know we've ever seen before, as he sits there next to the guy responsible for the shooting and all of that he thinks these people need to flee, as he plans for an entire population to be taken against their will, their land utterly stolen, never to be returned, and then for them to be dumped somewhere. That was back in February. And lest you believe that, he was just being Trump, he was being silly, he wouldn't actually push for that, it's not really gonna happen. Well, it's happening because Axios reports that Benjamin Netanyahu was in that video, has tasked Mossad with finding countries that would take in a huge volume of Palestinian refugees. Apparently, they have already spoken with Somalia and South Sudan, which I'm sure if you were to ask Trump, these nice places with nice houses, to make a list of countries, those are the first two that he would put on that list. Also Indonesia, and that's what they said. So where are they going to put the entire Palestinian population? Well, Africa, Southeast Asia, wherever, the moon, an incinerator, just get them the hell out of there. That's what the plan appears to be. And I haven't yet seen any reporting of any country saying that they would be willing to take in the better part of 1 million men, women, and children, Cenk, but do you have any ideas of whether they might get any takers?
Yeah, I'm super worried. I've heard rumors of another country as well, which I'll talk about in a little bit later in this segment. And then, look, I want to talk about their overall plan and how it's been their plan from day one. And at the end, I want to talk about, is there any hope for stopping this? It's a slim hope, but I want to talk about who can possibly stop it. But John, tell us more about it.
Yeah, I don't know that I even have that hope, but I would speculate that if it were, I don't know, Saddam Hussein a couple decades ago that was saying, hey, in like a year, I'm gonna round up 1 million people and I'm gonna force them off their land, the UN would probably get involved. I imagine when Putin wants to forcefully relocate people, we've armed the resistance to that. Other countries have too. Is there a reason that this sort of planned, projected genocide is acceptable because it's Israel? That's not a rhetorical question, by the way. I am waiting to see the world actually do something to stop this, but thus far they're not. And so that's what Mossad is doing. Other parts of the Israeli government are working on different components of this genocide. So Israel's cabinet approved the formation of a special directorate in the Ministry of Defense that will oversee and it's important that you know these are in quotation marks, willful departure of Palestinians from Gaza. All of them will be willful. They're all fine with their land being stolen from them and then being dumped in some slum that they don't know anything about the place, anything about the language, whatever, that'll be it for them. By the way, the finance minister last month spoke to the parliament and said, if we take out 10,000 a day, it will take 6 months. If we take out 5,000 a day, it will take a year, which is obviously horrifying. It's a bit vague. We don't know, are they gonna march the 10,000 a day along some sort of trail as they steal their land and move them somewhere? Maybe they'll load the 10,000 a day onto trains or something and ship them off. I don't know, it's a lot of people. They're gonna have to figure out how you do this sort of industrial relocation, but apparently they are working for it in multiple aspects of their government. So that's currently what we know.
Yeah, so one of our members on TYT.com, Spider-Man Dragon, said a point that I was about to make. I'm surprised Trump isn't saying deport the Palestinians to El Salvador, but that means they'd be closer to our border. Yeah, I mean, it's possible that at the end they're just like, who wants them? We're going to pay you, right? Why did El Salvador take the Venezuelans that we sent over there? We gave them $6 million. So if Israel or America, and by the way, Israel's not going to give them any money. They're going to make America give them money to relocate the Palestinians, right? So if they go to a super poor country that might be in the middle of a civil war and go, hey, we'll pay, not by the way, not the country, but whoever the dictator or whoever's running the country, some giant amount of money, it doesn't matter, it's gonna come from American taxpayers anyway, to take in all these people, put them in a prison, put them in camps, put them in tents, who cares? The whole point is ethnic cleansing and genocide anyway. And by the way, if you don't think removing over 2 million people from their homes and driving them to another country is ethnic cleansing, you literally don't understand the meaning of words. You don't speak the English language. That is the textbook definition of ethnic cleansing. So Trump blithely it's like, yeah, maybe we should move them out. And then and who? No, you're driving them from their land. You're joking around about a war crime, but whatever. Like, I get it. Trump's an idiot, doesn't know anything, doesn't care. He's just like, me want Adelson money, yeah, right? I get it. He's super lowbrow. And I look, some of his followers hate what he's doing. A lot of his followers are like, oh yeah, Trump said it, then I'm for, okay, forget freedom, forget anything, forget America first. We now serve Israel, et cetera, et cetera. And so in terms of other rumors I've heard that Turkey might consider it. These are epic disasters. And look, that's just a rumor, so take it for whatever it's worth, right? But what's not a rumor is what Axios is reporting. Several countries, 3 countries approached and considering helping Israel do an ethnic cleansing of Gaza. And why? Why they just want to clear out Gaza, get some fresh air? No. What did we tell you? Their plan all along is greater Israel. And we didn't come up with that because it's a conspiracy theory or we're some sort of geniuses. They say it all the time. Cabinet members in Israel. Smotrich gave another speech about it recently. They're like, yeah, why don't we just slaughter them and we'll use the hostages as an excuse. Oh, well, they didn't give the hostages back. And so we'll then ship the 2 million out and we'll take Gaza and we'll move our settlers in. And right now, one of the things they want to do is push all of them into a quote unquote humanitarian zone because it's 1984. So if you're gonna do genocide and ethnic cleansing, you call it a humanitarian zone. Push 2 million people into a tiny space so that it's easier to ship them out. I mean, in the old days it was trains, now it's planes. So this is a sick genocide of the Palestinian people, and the Israeli cabinet is saying it out loud, let alone what Mossad is doing behind the scenes. I'm super curious if any supporter of Israel is ever going to turn around and go, oh, I called you anti-Semitic and I said it was this and I said it was that, and now they're actually doing exactly what you said. I was wrong, I'm against it, I want to help. Is that gonna happen? I mean, we always talk about how Trump guys are cult. Are any Trump guys ever gonna turn around? Ha ha ha, what a cult. Are any Israeli supporters ever gonna turn around? I'm not talking about Jewish Americans. Those Jewish Americans are already against this. I'm talking about people defending Israel to this day, in the middle of one of the worst slaughters we have ever seen in our lifetime. Over 50,000 butchered at a minimum, over 15,000 children massacred. And still, that could be human shields. You're still doing propaganda over this? You're still gonna do propaganda over this when they're announcing, yes, we are planning to steal the land. That was the point all along. By the way, I don't believe for a second that they didn't know that October 7th was gonna happen. Besides which, we literally know that they knew. Israeli press has reported that they knew. Oh, golly gee, the best intelligence agency in the world that did that beeper thing. Oh, they just snuck by us. No, and if you really love Israel, understand what these monsters in that government did. Not only to the Palestinians, but to your own people. And you think, and that's what drives me crazy about Israeli supporters. I get why, because of the trauma of the past, et cetera, and they think, no, we got to protect our own, and we're the victims, we're always, and okay, and they have been the victims in the past. But guys, snap out of it, because this whole idea of no matter who's in charge of Israel, no matter how right-wing they are, no matter how monstrous they are, no, they're pure as the driven stone. I'll defend them. I'll defend them. I'll defend them. Because Israel is the one country that cannot have a bad leader. Everything is moral. They cannot. They're the one country in the world that cannot have a government that ever makes bad decisions or immoral decisions. They're the one holy moral country. You have to be really detached from reality to believe that, especially in the middle of now their announced, planned genocide and ethnic cleansing. Moss.
Yeah, you mentioned this is all very sick, and one thing that struck me as being very sick is that Donald Trump is saying in that clip we showed earlier that we're going to take them away from this place where they're not getting stabbed and shot. And meanwhile, you pointed out the person or the people stabbing and shooting them were, Netanyahu. The murderer is sitting right next to him, and he's saying we're going to take him away. It's like saying we're going to move the victims out of the neighborhood so this guy will stop killing them. And this guy's just sitting there smiling about it. And I'm going, what a sick and twisted reality. They're saying we need to get you away for safety from this guy who's sitting right next to me. We just want to, and he's just smiling and going, yeah. I mean, the pretense of it all is just so sick. And not to mention the fact that the world, the Western world right now is taking in a lot of refugees from wars, whether it was Syria or Ukraine or wherever. And then you have these, you have the pushback from the right in many countries, whether it's America or Germany or wherever in Europe, saying, we don't want any more migrants. We don't want any migrants. Well, then stop supporting wars and work on stopping wars. Stop going at the UN Council and voting against a ceasefire. Stop that. If you don't want migrants coming to you, if you don't want refugees fleeing their land and coming to your country, then stop it. Then do something about it. Stand on some moral ground, and they don't. And then the other thing I will point out is that during the election, a lot of Palestinians and a lot of pro-Palestinians voted for Donald Trump because they thought that he's going to do something better for them. And I was always saying, whether it's Trump or it's Biden, or it's Democrat or Republican, the policy is the policy. And the policy is to support Israel blindly. And to your point, I think that if you love Israel or if you love your own country, you should be able to criticize their leadership for their policies. That's part of being a Western democracy. And the final thing I will say is, once again, observing countries like Iran that are an Islamic totalitarian state, anytime you put religion into the game and you have people in Israel, like you said, Smotrich, the far right people who believe that, they start talking about God and how it's their right and all that other stuff. That's where I think you end up with a society where it's harder to criticize that leadership, because they always defer to the idea that God wanted this is God. And by the way, one final thing, we are seeing our own country move in that direction when you have people on the right saying that Donald Trump was God bringing him to us, and we're going to have to go further and further to the right. So there's a lot of repercussions to all of this, and it is just unbelievable that these discussions are being had, and that America is standing by and just doing same old. I mean, that's just been what it is.
Yeah. So last thing is, I promised, who can stop them, and that is not a long list. Okay, I'm not sure it's really anyone, but I'll tell you who can't stop them real quick. The world. What are they going to do? Like attack Israel? No, then America will attack them. So nobody can do anything about that, right? I mean, they could start a giant war. I'll get to that in a second. But certainly, Europe's not going to do anything. Most of their governments are captured by Israel. And even if they weren't, what are they going to do? There's literally nothing they could do. China's not going to do anything. Russia's not going to do anything. The world's not the answer. Our politicians are 90% corrupt. They almost all work for Israel, take AIPAC money. The largest donor for half the politicians in America are AIPAC. So they're totally corrupt and gone. At the left, nobody ever listens to the left. So I wish one day, but not today. So who's left? Look, one group is Jewish Americans. So I'm not putting it on them like people do when there's like some fundamentalist Muslim does a bombing, a terrorist attack, and then all Muslims are responsible and you all have to apologize. No. Jewish Americans are not responsible. They don't have to apologize, et cetera, et cetera. But do they have collective power that can make a difference for good? I think they do. And I hope that they begin to realize this is not helping anyone. It's not helping the Jewish community, it's not helping Israel. We got to get him out of this fight. Israel's basically like a 280-pound guy, got into a bar fight. And you don't, look, as a friend, and you want to say, and Jewish Americans are not Israelis, they're Americans. But as a friend, you want to say, okay, I support my brother in the fight. But now, no matter who started and where it was, he's got a 120-pound guy underneath him. And he's just bashing the living crap out of him, and he's about to die. That's when a friend comes in and stops the guy, right? That doesn't encourage him and enable him and go, oh, go get him, you're the victim. You're the victim, keep pounding him. No, don't do that. So I have faith that can happen. So I hope that something snaps in a way that's positive and leads in that direction. But the only other group that can make a difference, and maybe more realistic, because Jewish Americans are still a small group overall, is the right wing. So again, the right wing's not fully responsible. Nobody's fully responsible, but I'm talking about people who can make a difference. So why? If they turn on Israel, there's some percentage chance that Trump will listen to his base. And that's not a guarantee at all, because he is not listening to his base when they want him to cut defense and they want him to do all these things. Instead, he's just giving corporations more subsidies, more giveaways, more tax cuts, et cetera. But on some things, when his base is angry enough, he turns around. Now they could do that at some point when they get mad enough, but I haven't seen it yet. But we're at the beginning of his term, or the disaster scenario where they're starting to put people on trains and planes and they're shackling them and just. They've put them in the veiled pen of the so-called humanitarian zone, and people are being butchered, et cetera. And what? The Muslim world just erupts. It goes, I can't. I'm not going to let you. I mean, this is now getting to a point where, are we past genocide? Are we at the next word? What is this? And so the populations of Egypt, Jordan, and all the neighboring countries can just go, that's it. That's it. If you're not attacking Israel, we're attacking you. And if you think, I'm not encouraging it, I think that's a disaster, epic disaster. But if you think, no, people will know that they are defeated, and all Muslims across the world will say, of course, Israel is our Lord and Savior, and they can oppress, humiliate, destroy, kill, and ethnically cleanse all of us, and we will never ever fight back, because then we will be called terrorists by American media. Yeah, you can call them all you want, but at some point, human beings snap. So we might have the biggest bloody mess you've ever seen in your life in Gaza. And Trump in the beginning will say, keep shipping them out. You send me money and you destroy and kill and move out any Palestinians you like. And maybe, just maybe, in those kind of disaster scenarios, even the right wing goes, why? Why did we get ourselves in the middle of a giant conflict? And we have to pay for it when you ran on anti-war. Now, a lot of you will say, yeah, I don't believe that Trump voters were ever anti-war. I think they're giant liars about everything. I disagree. Whether they hold Trump accountable is a different question, and we're all gonna find out. Okay.
I think we probably have to take our second break, but we have more coming up after this.
Yeah. All right, back on TYT. Let's go to our members. Tattered Remnant says, what's really scary to me is the Democrats' refusal to fight. Can't muster anything better than another Kente cloth demo or waving little paddles around. How pathetic can they be? So on the kidnapping of people off the streets, it's a layup. Like, it's horrific. So, but Chris Murphy was on TV. So there's one senator who complained about it. And when I saw it, I was like, hey, a Democrat fighting back. Hey, a Democrat who isn't serving Israel and says that maybe we shouldn't round up people like the Gestapo on American streets. Like one guy. I'm sure there's some others, but I didn't see him. I mean, it's certainly not a concerted effort, no. And on Israel, remember, big majorities of Democratic politicians agree. Israel can do no wrong, and we will give them infinite, endless money for endless slaughter. So if you're thinking that the Democratic politicians are against what Israel's doing, please, 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 don't be detached from reality. Are they as bad as Trump? No, Biden was like, no, just murder them over there, but don't move them. And I don't want a Riviera, but just murder them over there. Here's more blank checks. Okay. Mongoose Dragon said, Maz is always insightful and calming. I agree. Rebel Dragon said, Maz, you're getting that reputation now, brother. Not a bad reputation to get. Rebel Dragon says, being shot at and knifed by whom? You mean Israel? So let's give even more weapons to Israel. Make it make sense. It's very similar to the point that Maz made. Eclectic Miscellanea writes in, Trump is gleefully supporting ethnic cleansing and genocide, and there's almost no pushback domestically. Then again, Biden openly funded ethnic cleansing and genocide, and there was almost no pushback. What will it take to wake people up? Will the kidnappings do it? I'm starting to wonder if anything will. And look, give credit to the left here, including populist left, far left. We're a lot of times terrific on this issue. So huge portions of the left were pushing back against Biden. We were not a cult. We challenged Biden aggressively. Establishment Democrats were like, oh, Trump would be worse, so I'm not going to criticize Biden for doing something horrific, for helping fund a genocide with our money. Well, then, silence is consent. So you were okay with it as long as Biden did it. You were okay with it as long as Biden did it. Now you have the Republicans saying, some huge portion of them saying, we're okay if Trump does it. Okay, well that's tribalism, and that's what's destroying the country. Skeptic Saturn Dragon says, being German and having read and heard about the Holocaust many times, with what has always shocked me was the sheer scale of it, putting millions of people in camps and moving them through the country with trains. And Israel is planning what? Well, they're moving them. I mean, and to be fair, they're killing them in Gaza. I don't know if they're going to continue to kill them where they move them. All right, back on TYT, Cenk, John, and Maz with you guys. Also, David Olson, who just joined. David, welcome, brother. All right, John, what's next?
Well, this week we had more of those car tariffs announced, and I think a lot of people noticed and acknowledged that they're likely to benefit Tesla and Elon Musk. But I don't think Elon Musk is done getting as much out of the government as he can to benefit himself. He's got another thing in mind, which he's going to describe in this clip.
The real problem is not the people. It's not like the crazy guy that firebombs a Tesla dealership. It's the people pushing the propaganda that caused that guy to do it. Those are the real villains here, and we're going to go after them. And the president's made it clear we're going to go after them.
Okay, so we have made very clear on the show, this network, that acts of property damage are crimes and shouldn't be done. There's been a couple instances of that. And this is now a thing that for multiple weeks, basically everyone in the highest reaches of the Trump administration have apparently been spending a massive amount of time on, because they say that this is hurting Tesla, I guess. This is why their stock price is going down, not because of Elon Musk's reputation, which he has seemingly willfully done a great deal of damage to. And it takes the government, the White House, the president himself jumping into action to protect them in this particular case. He made a couple of points there earlier about those who bear ultimate responsibility for even individual acts of property damage like this. And we're certainly going to want to return to that. But in this appearance with Bret Baier, Elon Musk had more to say. Let's jump to that video first.
You don't have to be here. You know, there's now been these many cases of violence and vandalism at Tesla dealerships. How does that affect your employees, your customers? What does it mean to you? Like, how have you taken that in?
Well, I think a great wrong is being done to the people of Tesla and to our customers. I mean, Tesla is a peaceful company that has made great cars, great products. That's all it's done. Hasn't harmed anyone. And yet people are committing violence. They're firebombing Tesla dealerships. They're shooting guns into stores. They're threatening people. They're issuing death threats against me and other Tesla personnel. What are they doing this for? Why? And what's happening, it seems to me, is they're being fed propaganda by the far left. And they believe it. The ones providing the money, the ones pushing the lies and propaganda, we're going after them.
Okay, so again, many times we've said don't shoot at these dealerships. You could end up killing someone who has nothing to do with Doge, might not like Elon Musk individually, might even agree with you on the politics. The vast majority of it, of course, has been property damage. And he seems utterly incapable of acknowledging why people might have a problem with him. And I don't know, it's always hard with Elon Musk to know if it's just because he's this stupid, which I think he is, or this dishonest, which I think he is. It's one or maybe both in this case. His refusal to acknowledge that the damage to his reputation and the associated reputation of Tesla might be due to the choices he's made and the terrible things he's done that have ruined thousands, tens of thousands of lives, just government workers as one example. I would also briefly point out that Teslas have done damage to people. His desire to rush out full self-driving when it wasn't actually safe, and his engineers have been clear of that, has undoubtedly resulted in bodily harm and deaths. The weird thing about the doors locking and people being unable to get out when the car's on fire, those sorts of things are not peaceful in the way he's talking about. But the most important thing there is they are not willing to accept that this might be individual people breaking the law because they don't like him or the company. No, it has to be bigger than that. Somebody has to be funding it. And even if they're not, who is making people believe that Tesla's bad? Who is maybe like making videos or posting things? It doesn't matter if they actually broke the law. To Elon Musk and apparently to Donald Trump, the two co-presidents of the United States, they're the ones fundamentally who we have to go after, which I think raises some interesting questions. When people post like on Libs of TikTok or Matt Walsh, they post about hospitals and they make it seem as if they're butchering kids or something. And then there's bomb threats against them. Libs of TikTok didn't do the bomb threat, but does anyone believe that the individual who did would have done that bomb threat if they hadn't seen those posts online, on YouTube, on Rumble, on Twitter, or whatever? Now, I don't think that those people broke the law. I don't think those people should rot in jail, but evidently Elon Musk does. And so who is it that led people to bomb abortion clinics or murder the doctors performing them? Who are the ones who inspired people to drive their cars into crowds of BLM protesters or bring their assault rifles there and start shooting people? Because we've had multiple instances of that, and I don't think those people would have just, there's no world in which they didn't do that, and there was certainly a lot of content inspiring them to do that. Why is it that a guy broke into Nancy Pelosi's home and tried to kidnap her and cracked her husband's skull open? Who is it that in the lead up to that was posting about how Nancy Pelosi is evil and something needs to be done? Again, I don't think you should go to jail for doing that, but evidently that's the position of Elon Musk and maybe MAGA as of right now.
Yeah, so he says the real problem are the people criticizing Tesla. No, that's not true. The real problem are the people who are doing crimes. So you got a guy burning up a Tesla, arrest him, charge him with arson and whatever else you got, okay? That makes sense that it applies to that crime. Okay, somebody's doing a death threat, arrest them, find the guy, etc. By the way, while you're at it, come help us too. Okay, like I know the elites get special privileges and we just got to stay out here and get swatted and all that stuff. But anyway, you want to prevent crime, I'm legendarily for it. Okay, I'm taking a lot of critique for being anti-crime. Okay, so let's go get the criminals. No, the people criticizing your product are not responsible for that. So if we play this game, to John's point, we can round everybody up. Oh, you're responsible for a right-winger sending pipe bombs. You're responsible for January 6th. You're responsible for a Tesla burning. You're responsible for the Bernie Sanders, one Bernie Sanders supporter who ever did violence, right? Et cetera, et cetera. And then next thing you know, we're all locked up. We're all terrorists, right? No. You're not gonna take away our speech rights. I mean, this is so ironic. This is the guy who claimed to be a free speech absolutist. He had to take over Twitter because they were taking away free speech. Now he's like, a real problem is people criticizing my company. I've got the president who I purchased working around the clock to help arrest anyone who criticizes my corporation. That's the real problem. Is it? No, I think the real problem is that you're a giant liar and hypocrite who never meant anything about free speech. Look, our poll question in the live chat is Elon Musk a free speech absolutist? I'm curious if you like people in the middle watch, people running a right wing watch, you know, Monday through Friday, 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock Eastern. Come watch along with us, be part of the show. 12% think, yeah, he's a free speech absolutist. I mean, of course you should arrest anyone criticizing Tesla. I mean, that's not free speech. I mean, that's protesting a corporation. You crazy dog? Okay, and you know, here's one thing I know about the right wing though. They do not want any products burned or smashed or shot at, unless it's Nike or Keurig or Bud Light, in which case you should shoot the living crap out of it, you should burn it, you should smash it. And say, but Tesla, you arrest them. That's a product of a corporation. You're going to arrest everyone who suggested it. Or should we round up everyone who smashed those things on the right? Of course not, because we're not hypocrites. We actually believe in freedom of speech. Finally, why did he say those weird things about like, oh, you know, who's funding this? Dude, there's like, if you're talking about the radicals who are actually doing the fires and who encouraged them, there's nobody funding that. Like the most outer edge radicals in America. No, you think that other billionaires are gonna fund radicals that destroy corporations? Like it's so maniacal. So why is it even in his head? Because projection. Because what does Elon Musk do? I fund Donald Trump and then he puts me in charge of the government, so I assume others are doing it. And this is just propaganda. And I bought X for free speech or maybe you bought it for propaganda and that's why you assume everybody's doing what you're doing. Moss.
Yeah, the irony and the tone deafness is just crazy on this guy. When he's saying the people who are inspiring these things should be the ones held accountable. I mean, you know, Donald Trump famously on January 6th said, go down to the Capitol and, you know, let's win back our democracy. I mean, he straight up said it. And then those guys went. So, hello, I mean, that's what that guy does. And then when he says, oh, I've been getting death threats, Donald Trump says the people on the committee, the January 6th committee are people that people should go after. So you see Eric Swalwell, you see Jamie Raskin, you see all these members of that committee constantly getting death threats from Trump supporters. So if you want to point at somebody who's causing a lot of violence and threats of violence, maybe he should talk to his buddy over there, as well as himself, like you guys just pointed out. The other thing is, you know, Bond villains and Lex Luthor, Gene Hackman, RIP, they at least had the decency to admit they were villains. This guy's pretending not to be a villain. I mean, he's clearly a villain. You're the villain. Like, just own it. Be like, look, I'm a villain, and people don't like me, and that's why they're burning the Teslas. But you know, I don't care because I have so much money. I really don't care. He admit it, as opposed to trying to play this guy who's like, I don't know what's going on. Why don't they like this? You know what it is propaganda against Teslas. Now, let me tell you one last thing. I am a Tesla owner, and I regret owning a Tesla right now. I bought it before all this crap started. I didn't buy it, I leased it. I'm trying to get out of it, but they charge you an arm and a leg to get out of the lease. And I will tell you right now, firsthand, that I am not upset at the car itself because of some propaganda that's been fed to me. I'm not saying it's actually it's a good car, but the problem is this guy. So every time I'm in the car, I just feel like, oh my God, what's he gonna say next? Oh my God, and I feel I pull up at the lights all the time. I'm apologetic. When he was doing the Nazi salute, I was like, what do I gotta apologize for that? He's a disaster, and he's completely tone deaf. And then people make excuses. Supporters of his make excuses. They go, well, he's on the spectrum. Well, he better get off the spectrum, because at least admit that you are the problem. That's it. Being on the spectrum is not an excuse to be like, oh, I'm clueless to the fact that I'm the cause of all these problems. And all of that to say, once again, John said it a few times, no one advocates violence or burning anything or any of that stuff. However, these folks are the same folks who inspired all those things that John had said. January 6th, he continues to do things like that, that causes threats of violence towards others. And the fact that he is not admitting, the fact that he's sitting there with a straight face, the fact that Brett Baer doesn't just laugh and go, are you being serious? That would have been great. If Brett Baer would have been like, come on, no, really, it's you, right? It's you. You're the cause. You don't know that? Like, what kind of genius are you that you're, and I think, John, you made that point. I think he's just an insincere, narcissistic megalomaniac who is not to be trusted. And I just want to get rid of my Tesla. Somebody help me get rid of it, please. Somebody buy it.
Maz is forcing me to make the last couple of points. Number one, we'll prove to you that we really, really don't want you to burn Teslas. It might be Maz's car, so don't burn it. Okay, all right, so that's point one. Point two is, you said he's like the villain, right? He literally came out in a chainsaw, right? He's like out of a Halloween movie. And they're like, nope, I don't see it. I don't see it. And you want to talk about encouraging violence? As they were breaking into the Capitol, we showed you the tape many times, they were chanting, hang Mike Pence, hang Mike Pence. And by the way, Trump was told about it and he said he deserves it. But political violence, what name so? The first time the right wing's ever heard about it is when a Tesla was attacked. Okay, guys, we criticize Democrats all the time. Try being consistent, try being principled to everyone. Stop the tribes, stop the tribalism, and just be consistent for once. So finally, and especially, and again, if you're right wing or you're in the middle or wherever you are, remember, this is all in an effort to take away your rights. Because once they stop anyone from criticizing Tesla, then they can stop you from criticizing any corporation or any donor or any politician. So these Tesla fires have a little Reichstag fire energy to them. Not because that they were set or lit by Elon or anyone on their side, no. But because it's an excuse to take away your rights. All right, we gotta go. Everybody check out MazJabrani.com, right?
Or at Maz Jobrani. You can follow me online. I'm always posting where I'm going to be touring, so come check me out live.
Yeah, you got to check out Maz live. You're going to love it. Okay, so and check him out on Rebel headquarters as well. Everybody check out Damage Report, of course, Monday through Friday every day. John and Maz, you guys are awesome. We appreciate you. And guys, we're going to come right back with stories of like over the top corruption for Donald Trump.
I fully expect a daily proctology exam.
Our audience has given us everything, so we couldn't be more connected. When we first started, people would start giving us directions and say, okay, the mics are too large, move them. Turn them into lav mics. I mean, they were incredible. And then one guy walked in and gave us a really expensive switcher and said, you guys need this, and walked out. Okay, it's amazing. They helped us build a studio. They did a $2 million funding campaign for us. And so they really are us. We do this show together to the point where some of our hosts are even former listeners. So when we say that the audience is part of TYT, we really mean it.
I think what the audience also appreciates is especially if they're members, they really get an inside look into who we are, our personal lives, what drives and motivates us. It goes beyond just storytelling. I think that what we do is allow our viewers and our listeners into our daily lives, and we give them kind of like this inside look into everything that we're passionate about and why it is that we're doing what we're doing, right? Like the motivation behind what we're doing, I think is important for our audience to know, and we're not shy about sharing that with them. And it's different from what people typically see in legacy media outlets where everything is kind of dry and robotic and there's really no personality or authenticity that comes along with it. Oftentimes when we're doing the show, I don't really think of it as me telling them stories. I think of it as us having a mutual respect and conversation with one another. And as I said earlier, I mean, not only do I feel that through the work I do, I'm informing our audience, but they inform me oftentimes as well. You know, they'll pitch stories to us. They'll tell us, you know, a certain perspective or angle to a story that we might have missed, and I love it.
You're about to watch some behind the scenes footage of the Young Turks. Ooh. Now these are partial videos. If you want to get all of them, you become a member, go to tyt.com/join, and you'll get all the behind the scenes of me, Anna, John, JR, a little bit reality show like. tyt.com/join and enjoy this. You know what you're seeing behind me? Jersey, hold. Watch me flip this camera. However I flip it. Do I flip it like this? No, I just took a picture. I'm bitzing right now.
What?
Behind the scenes.
Oh, okay. For members? I don't have my face on.
She doesn't have her face on, folks. Oh, that's JR's ass right there.
You can't take 5 minutes off, can you?
No, I can't, Johnny Pie. I said it was live stream, but I was lying. It's not a live stream. It's just for members. Bitsy, this is my cat. You know what his name is? Kiki Cat.
Animals are innocent.
Control room and the insanity is obviously there.
Right now, as you can see, I'm directing or tech directing.
I'm so happy to be here.
This is what like a Labor Day beard looks like for Cenk. Man, you're a Young Turks viewer if you recognize me like this.
Such a big fan. Oh, thank you. You are the one person in my life I would love to meet. What's going on, guys? This is a Bitsy or a BTS or behind the scenes with Hassan Piker, AKA Woke Bay.
Oh, hi, I didn't see you there.
I have finished my show, The Damage Report, and now I get into a really awkward time of the day.
When I'm sitting, the control room is right there. So I can see Bart.
And this is the Pittsburgh office, by the way. Referred to often as the boiler room.
You see how it's ripped? Is it super unprofessional to wear that at a business meeting? Or am I like cool rebel?
I just finished doing the power panel and I'm fired up.
What do you do for TYT?
Not a whole lot.
If you're frantically tweeting at us that something's broken, thank you, because I'm fixing it.
And thank you for being a TYT member.
Super last thing, because there's always got to be a super last thing. Oh, that was disastrous. This has been behind the scenes, behind the scenes. Drop it like it's our rights in the Trump era. All right, back on TYT, Cenk Uygur, Sharon Reed, Ramesh Srinivasan with you guys. Ramesh is host of Utopia's podcast, professor at UCLA. Sharon's at Rebel headquarters, and we're all here for the power panel. So good to see all my rowdy friends on this Friday evening. All right, Sharon, what do you got for us?
Fridays lately seem to be rowdier than ever, Cenk. We'll begin with Uno Reverse.
It's worth returning to the center of the story, the center of the matter. And at the center of the story is a person. It's Jeffrey Goldberg. Is there not some ethical obligation on Jeffrey Goldberg to announce himself and to leave. He literally is the story. But for his presence, it's not a story. It's not as though he uncovered Watergate, he overheard something through a wall that happened to matter to national security. His presence is the story. What obligation does Jeffrey Goldberg have to make himself not the story?
Finally, someone is speaking common sense into this Signal Gate controversy, because the entire blame falls on the reporter who somehow decided to add himself to a group chat on an unauthorized messaging app by the National Security Advisor, not the, again, National Security Advisor or the Secretary of Defense, because why would it? You just heard from Fox News host Will Cain, who did his best to try to make us think that, the sky is green or something. It's his turn to run cover for the Trump administration, I suppose, put the blame onto anyone else but Pete Hegseth or Tim Walz, the ones who were so reckless in this situation. Cenk, I guess we'll start with this. Your initial reaction to Cain's logic there, because he really was full-throated with it. He put his heart and soul into it. You almost think he actually believes this?
Yeah, no, the story isn't that a bunch of dumbasses who work at the highest levels of government put classified information on a Signal chat and accidentally invited a reporter. They're not at fault at all. It's the reporter who got added. It's all his fault. Does anyone believe that? Well, actually, we have a little bit of the answer later in the story. What percentage of Republicans think that this is a serious problem? You might be surprised at the answer, but back to you, Sharon.
All right, let's give you a little bit more of the argument, and then we'll get into more of the severity of Signal Gate. I mean, this was serious stuff. Listen.
What is the role of Jeffrey Goldberg? He literally is the center of the story. He got invited, apparently, perhaps, maybe, he got included in a private group deliberation. Now, if you or I get invited to a party, brought into a party that we really just weren't supposed to be at, we didn't get an invitation, we politely excuse ourselves. Maybe that makes light of the situation. Improper disclosures are always made in the legal world. Private filings, information you shouldn't receive is sometimes sent over email to the wrong person. Lawyers bow out, announce their presence, and say it's time to move on. We saw none of that here with Jeffrey Goldberg. Instead, he sat around under the implausible rationale that he wanted to find out if it was real. He never bowed out. He never announced himself. Instead, the first the world heard of it is when he published what he claimed to be classified documents and overhyped and oversold as war plans. Is there not some ethical obligation on Jeffrey Goldberg to announce himself and to leave?
Now, and by the way, who do you know that gets into a party uninvited and leaves? No one, okay? So, and none of this makes any sense. This was a scoop of a lifetime. If this were a Democratic administration and it was Will Cain instead of Goldberg, would he have the same opinion? Of course not, okay? But this also shows how much Republicans are downplaying the matter. But according to a recent YouGov poll published earlier this week, a majority of Americans believe this is a serious problem. Let's look at it. 74% of voters believe this to be at least a serious issue. And notably, when you break it down by political party, 60% of Republicans responded that the chat was serious. So people do get it, okay? Very serious, somewhat serious. I mean, look at the numbers there. They get it. Those people are right. This is a serious issue because it's putting not only our soldiers at risk, but our allies too, and they're weighing in. According to the Daily Mail, during the day of the March 15th strikes, a British Voyager plane was used to refuel American jets that defended the carrier that launched the strikes. The former head of the British Army, Lord Dennett, told the Telegraph this: as US officials gave away classified information about future operations in which the Royal Air Force were involved, this undoubtedly placed British personnel at higher risk. I hope the White House will tighten its security rapidly and considerably. Will continue to operate with the US, but need to be confident about their operational security. The hypocrisy here is just incredible, okay? The allies aren't even weighing whether this was somewhat classified, somewhat serious. They said, this is classified and you put our people at risk. And while we can't and won't pull out right now, we're not gonna, diss America. We're gonna continue to support you, but we're not too confident. We don't trust you right now. Cenk, you start and then Ramesh.
Yeah, so 60% of Republicans saying that it's a serious mistake and a problem. Hey, a little bit of hope in the world. Okay, that's a significant majority of his party saying, yeah, that was definitely wrong. And by the way, a lot of folks also online, including a lot of right-wing hosts and hosts in the middle, Portnoy and Tommy Lauren, but Piers Morgan as well, et cetera, all saying, admit the mistake, like pretending that it wasn't your fault and it was no big deal and it didn't involve national security are all absurd, totally, utterly absurd. And so, and when you get to the hypocrisy, we'll get to that in a second actually, because others have made similar mistakes. How were they treated? We'll tell you that. But back to Will Cain's excuses. Okay, look, I got a friend who adds me to a lot of text threads. And so that, like, we probably all have one friend like this. So he keeps adding us, and it's a bunch of guys, and we're joking around. And then he added me to a new one. This is a couple of years ago, and then I responded with a pretty coarse story about a hookup. And I'd forgotten to check who's in the text thread. It turns out there was over 30 people, half of them women, that I don't even know. It was like his other group of friends, and he had added me to it. I'm like, oh my God, what have you done? Okay, and you know whose fault that was? Jeffrey Goldberg.
Cenk, always getting involved in stuff.
All right, Ramesh.
I was waiting for the punchline there. I was like, where's he going with this? Of course, on this story, I'm gonna go digest for, but I have several thoughts on the larger sort of story of Jeff Goldberg and so on. First of all, as you all covered, everyone knows he's the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic. The Atlantic tends to follow, and Goldberg himself, particular sort of strand of coverage that rarely questions American exceptionalism. And certainly Goldberg himself has rarely, if at all, questioned the genocide in Gaza, which now we're apparently being gagged about by the administration as well. So in many ways, I think it's the story of a supposedly secure chat on Signal, which is never secure, not being secure, masks the reality that Goldberg and the Atlantic have had a lot of complicity in the normalization of the genocide and ongoing brutal violence against the Palestinian peoples in the West Bank as well. Everyone knows that a Signal chat is not actually secure. Signal is actually branded as the secure kind of peer-to-peer messaging texting, messaging app. But WhatsApp is also branded as similarly end-to-end encrypted. Signal does have more levels of encryption, but I think we should all recognize that pretty much any corporate or commercial platform that we exchange communications on is open for surveillance and the grabbing of data, or idiotic mistakes such as this, where you add the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic to the very chat thread. I do want to note that Trump is just incredible at avoiding the criticism that he should deserve in this situation, and just notice the comparison with his very successful, brutal, and mean attacks on Hillary Clinton dating back to the 2016 era. So I mean, it's really as far as Republicans being unhappy with this occurring and seeing it as a serious issue, I think Americans are unhappy with pretty much almost every politician. I'm unhappy with almost every member of the United States Congress, and certainly the president, except a few progressives mainly in the House at this point. So, and certainly Bernie. So people being unhappy with the status quo is the new normal. Goldberg is definitely one who would shield, if not support, U.S. brutal attacks on Houthis who are, in my opinion, at least trying to stand up and show some resistance to what is going on, which is everyone just saying, hey, it's okay to just do this to these Palestinian peoples because there's no leverage. And now many of us are afraid of acting up. I mean, as a professor at a university, I just see this issue constantly.
Yeah, it is a scary time. And, we talked a little bit, we teased the hypocrisy. We'll get into it now. But there's hypocrisy that we knew was there. And then there's like a whole new level where people just enjoy coming before the cameras and saying utter nonsense as if they didn't do something different and say something different yesterday. It's bizarre, but it is our normal, like you said. It has, though, brought to light that serious hypocrisy in the Trump administration. So listen to this.
Any security professional, military, government, or otherwise, would be fired on the spot for this type of conduct and criminally prosecuted for being so reckless with this kind of information.
The assumption is in the intelligence community, if you are using unclassified means, there is the potential for and likelihood that foreign governments are targeting those accounts and gathering intelligence from them. How damaging is it to your ability to recruit or build allies with others when they are worried that our leaders may be exposing them because of their gross negligence or their recklessness in handling information?
She was less than truthful about it repeatedly. And it goes to the issue of both confidence and credibility. It is irresponsible for an elected official in her capacity to be discussing highly sensitive things on a format that she had to have known was not fully secure.
The sitting national security advisor, right now, Jake Sullivan, was sending and laundering classified documents into an unclassified server.
Look, the bar is so low for elected officials today when it comes to transparency and just telling partial truths. Just tell us a little bit more truth. But this is stunning. And to me, it's almost worse that they're sitting here and lying to our faces, given those comments that we just played from several years ago you wouldn't need to change a word, okay? Just insert different players. There you have it. It does seem unlikely that there will be consequences for anyone who's involved in this scandal. Maybe Jeffrey Goldberg. Maybe someone will figure out how to punish the reporter. They're probably working on that right now. But according to the anonymous US defense official involved here about the Signal group chat blunder, who's familiar with the operation in Yemen, these are operational plans that are highly classified in order to protect the service members. It is safe to say that anybody in uniform would be court-martialed for this. We don't provide the level of information on unclassified systems in order to protect the lives and safety of the service members carrying out these strikes. If we did, it would be wholly irresponsible. My most junior analysts know not to do this. It's elementary. Former Representative Adam Kinzinger put it more succinctly. You can see it here. Any member of the military who did what they did on Signal would be kicked out or arrested. And we're kind of seeing what would happen if a lower level staffer did something similar, because NBC News reported this yesterday. Ironic timing, isn't it? DHS staffer faces serious punishment for accidentally adding a reporter to a group email. Not talking about the chat here. According to the report, longtime Department of Homeland Security employee who told colleagues she inadvertently sent unclassified details of an upcoming immigration and customs enforcement operation to a journalist in late January, according to former ICE Chief of Staff Jason Hauser, one former DHS official and one current DHS official. It's important to note that while these were unclassified details, they were law enforcement sensitive because it included when the operation was happening. Possible locations of the targets. And guess what? Even these situations are extremely similar. That staffer was put on administrative leave and is planning to have her security clearances revoked. What a surprise. So how can anyone, there was already limited respect for then nominees, now confirmed members of the president's cabinet. But how can anyone follow them, take them seriously, take advice from them, let alone about military operations, if this is how they behave? And oh yeah, the hypocrisy. They don't face any consequences, won't even really apologize. But the men and women under them for doing far less, are about to lose it all.
Yep. So, but I hear Mike Walls, Pete Hegseth, their security clearance is about to be revoked and placed on administrative. Oh, no, right, there'll be no consequence whatsoever. So we're asking you in the live chat, if Hegseth and Walls weren't part of the elites, would they have been fired for this? So watch the show Monday through Friday, 6 o'clock is when we start every day, and be part of the show. Of course, everybody knows, 90%, of course, that if you were not at the very top, you'd be fired for this. This is not close. She's gonna probably get fired for the unclassified information about ICE. They put classified information about a top secret military strike that could have gotten the pilots killed. It doesn't get any worse than that. So, but again, it's gratifying to see that the 60% of Republicans think it's a big deal too. I'm gonna give my last words to two members here from TYT.com. By the way, annual membership gets you 2 months off there. Jack Callahan wrote in, how come nobody's talking about the real issue? We bombed civilian targets and apartment buildings in Yemen, please. Yes, by the way, lost in all this is two things. 53 people killed in that strike. Were they all terrorists? Of course not. But the civilians killed, just no one cares. Another member wrote in on another platform saying, also, nobody's talking about, in the middle of the chat except us, because I mentioned this a couple of times in previous shows. In the middle of the chat, they're like, well, either we're gonna do it or Israel's gonna do it and then charge us for it. So we might as well do it for them. Okay, it's amazing, it's amazing. Finally, last word is G-Rod saying, after all that talk about DEI this and unqualified that, but when these people make one inexcusable error after another, they're not responsible. It's everybody else's fault. Hilariously pathetic. Agreed on that. Ramesh, last word.
Yeah, I mean, for me, a lot of this goes to the question of power and leverage, right? So the Houthis are one of the only governments in the planet that are attempting to try to show some form of power. I don't know if the word is leverage, to try to stop what has been normalized now in this country and around the world, which is the extermination of a group of people that is occurring in front of our eyes. And we have to sit with that and honestly look at that. So we have to recognize the forest from the trees here, right? The big issue that most Arab governments are not trying to exert any leverage or power from what we can see to try to stop this. It's really only the Houthis, right? And the Houthis are, I'm not trying to praise them in some naive sense, but I think we need to understand that. Similarly, let's look at power and leverage around this issue. We used to live in a time where there was sufficient power and leverage that existed, where if someone did their emails on a private server, that seemed to have been sufficient to be one of the big means by which that person would be seen as not trustworthy, corrupt, and not electable. I know there are many things we genuinely didn't like about Hillary Clinton, but I think we can mention that. Now, where is the power and leverage to try to stop any of these people from doing anything they want outside of quick little embarrassments or just deflecting it onto someone else? So this to me is really what we're staring at right now here in the United States and around the world.
We'll see. Just an investigation would be good. Remember Comey? How late was it before the election when Comey stepped before the camera and said, this is so serious, got to investigate it right now, and I will get you something back immediately. But that was it. Much more to come. Hope you'll stay with us. We'll be right back after a quick break.
back on TYT. Let's go to Super Chat first. MSP writes in, so now all important government discussions are done on Signal. So no records will ever be kept. So no FOIA requests will find out anything. Yes, earlier in the week we talked about that. That is almost certainly the reason why they were on Signal, because they didn't want to be discovered. Oops. Space wrote in, I think that the Muslim world will unite from Morocco to Turkey to Iran, and with China and Russia backing the global landscape is changing, referring to Israel's plan to ship out all the Palestinians, and he's thinking that those governments would unite. I'm enormously skeptical of that. A lot of those governments are led by very bad people who couldn't care less about the Palestinians or anyone else. So we'll see though, we'll see what happens. JT Drum Shop writes in the YouTube member section, Cenk working his ass off even after the jet lag. What a force. TYT's pure badassery. That's very nice of you. I appreciate that. Thank you. He also wrote in, Sharon is an incredible asset to anyone. Amazing journalist. That one I agree with a lot more. So that makes sense. Christina Elisa Brown says, loves Sharon's hair. Color is perfect. And a lot of emojis to go along with it. And Sharon, we're not anywhere near done. Jesus loves you. T2525 says, Sharon's hair is fab. Also, more heart emojis. Kenneth Hall says, Mike.
This is crazy.
Yeah, Lady AF says, I like Sharon's shirt. It is endless. It's endless. I can go all day with this, okay?
My nightgown's underneath, but thank you, lady.
All right, now we know that. All right, I got invited to this chat. Hey, I got nothing to do with it. Kenneth Hall writes in, my God, are we gonna have to endure these fools for 4 years? Where do they get these clowns? The answer is yes, you are going to have to endure for 4 years. Sad day. Jen says, my cousin has a Tesla before it was cool, LOL, but this is quite concerning for the safety of people who have one. I agree, that's why I never do violence. Lo says, sub team, like that one. Shell and Tell on Twitch writes in, actually it would be unethical for Jeff Goldberg to not write this story. Exactly right. That'd be a violation of journalistic ethics. Nemo 1870 Dragon is an American hero who gifted 20 subs on Twitch. We appreciate you. Angie Pepper says, don't worry, we promised 40 acres and a mule too to the Palestinians being moved out of Israel. Yes. The infamous Mr. Joyboy at TYT.com says, I read somewhere that the text exposed a Mossad asset or agent on the ground in Yemen. So I don't know if it's a Mossad asset or a CIA asset, but does it really matter? They're pretty much the same agency with Mossad at the top, obviously. America needs a reboot, says the current kingpin of propaganda wants to combat propaganda. Brilliant. That's referring to Elon Musk. Art Guy says, are there any billionaires who aren't whiny, thin-skinned professional victims? We're looking out there. We got our best guys on it. We'll be back.
Was a bad dude, and he ran a bunch of bad boys.
Back on TYT, Cenk, Ramesh, and Sharon with you guys. Also, matters of time. Thank you for signing up at TYT.com. That's a smart decision. By the way, annual membership gets you a couple of months off there. All right, on YouTube, Kenneth Scott and that kid till 2055 just hit that beautiful join button below, became American heroes. And Alred the Bear came in at a premium level, so we're on that bear. Don't want to fight him. You guys are awesome. Thank you for being part of our community. Sharon, what's next?
I'll get into it, but I'm obsessed with that one question about the billionaires being whiny. And for some reason, I picture Bill Gates with a pie in his face. Is he whiny? Can we count him amongst the billionaires who whine and moan?
I don't know. So that's a good question. But I'll defend Warren Buffett a tiny bit. He doesn't usually whine. Like when they talked about increasing taxes, he's like, what kind of investor would care about higher taxes? We get in it because we think it's a good investment. And I was like, there you go. All right, one guy who's not a whiner, but Trump and Elon are out of control. Anyways.
Oh my goodness. Okay, Biden, Their Time, it's called, and here's why, because there's a new book out. Democratic officials were secretly making plans to replace President Biden as early as January 2023. According to a new book, set for release next week, It even claims Kamala Harris's aides were strategizing around the possibility that Biden might die in office. The book, titled Fight Inside the Wildest Battle for the White House, written by journalists Jonathan Allen and Amy Parnes, promises an inside look at the Biden, Harris, and Trump camps throughout the 2024 race, including some dramatic revelations that have already begun to leak. They're touted as dramatic revelations, I guess interesting, but I want to know, Cenk, do you even find this stuff interesting? Because I feel like I don't know if it's even surprising that, strategizing, he might die in office. Will anybody care at this point?
Yeah, I think that it's important for a couple of reasons. No, I'm not overly surprised by it, obviously. I mean, but although there is that funny part that the only people who started planning on Biden leaving before us, like because Young Turks started the petition, I think in the middle of 2023, when we were considered like radicals, these crazy, crazy leftists who think that Joe Biden isn't young. These lunatics don't think that he's in his 30s. Right? Meanwhile, the Biden team's already playing, oh yeah, our guy's cooked. Okay, so let's figure out what we're gonna do. What's our emergency plan 1, 2, 3? But the whole time, all of them are not only lying, but as an insider told us, Michael LaRosa, check out the interview on Young Turks on YouTube. He's like, yeah, we were gaslighting everyone. And then they were like, not him, but the Biden team was bullying the reporters. You better say he's wrong and dynamic, but behind the scenes, you better say he's the best candidate. Otherwise, there's gonna be consequences. You're gonna lose your access, right? So while they are doing plans on, his brain is falling out of left or right ear, which ear, okay? And they're out there going, you better not say anything that he's in mental decline. Giant, giant, giant liars. Wizard of Oz moment. You pull the curtain back, you see who the wizard is. So that's super important. But I think the implications for Kamala Harris are also important and interesting, but we'll get to that in a little bit.
Yeah. Some excerpts from the book, first reported by The Guardian, claimed Democrats had doubts Biden would make it to November 2024 as early as January of last year. They were discussing how to handle a possible exit. Here are the quotes. Democratic officials stage hush-hush talks to plan for Joe Biden's withdrawal as the party's presidential nominee as early as 2023. I wasn't just concerned about political strategy. The authors report that Harris's former communications director, Jamal Simmons, even drew up a death pool roster of federal judges who might swear in Harris just in case. Book says Simmons never told Harris about the document, but left instructions to alert him immediately if something happened to Biden. Do we believe that he didn't tell Harris, just said, hey, let me know if something happens to Biden, number one? And Cenk, does any of this reflect negatively on Kamala Harris? I mean, of course, the rules are different when there's a woman who might ascend to a higher office here.
No, I wouldn't blame her for planning at all. In fact, I blame her for the opposite. Why didn't you plan better? Why didn't you plan more? Look, I'll be honest with you. I don't know if this makes me a bad person, but if I was Biden's vice president from day one, I'd come up with all my policies. I'd have everything ready to go. I mean, who are we kidding? I mean, he had issues back in 2020. Again, people in Michael LaRosa, check out that interview, talking about on day one, they're talking about, yeah, I mean, let's be careful with where we put him out and all that stuff. They knew. So to me, I'm like, Jesus, Kamala Harris's team keeps saying, we only had 3 months. You had 4 years to prepare, besides which you're a politician. Don't you already know your policies? Don't you already know what you want to fight for? Why did you have to focus group it in the last 3 months? So no, I think Kamala Harris was a disaster and should have been preparing all along. So they're criticizing her for the wrong thing, in my opinion. Ramesh, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, remember everybody when we all heard that Biden would be a transitional president? I believe that those were his own words. So, it's It's all just sort of like stories like this just show to me how much of an insider party the Democratic Party, at least the mainstream of the Democratic Party and the parts of the party that are tied to the donor class really are. It's inside baseball, right? They have their own sort of ideas. Oh, we'll just put this person for, now, then this person will be next, then this person will be next, rather than recognizing the pulse of the country, which in 2016 and in 2020 was clearly highly populist and economically populist oriented. And the reason really why Trump did not win that re-election in 2020 was because the economy was tanking because of his horrible mismanagement of COVID, if we all remember this. So, I mean, for me, it's sort of like seeing this as a little bit like reading watching a novella or watching a soap opera or something, but this is just like elite wrangling from inside. And at the end of the day, for me, the big question is who is going to lead the opposition to what we are seeing happening here. In my opinion, we're only seeing really two members of the United States Congress get out there and show what they're all about, and that's Bernie and AOC.
And you wonder if this book will perhaps bring the focus back to the Democratic Party and their need to get their acts together. Were you going to say something else, Cenk?
No.
Okay. So, there's other claims in the book. Democratic strategists created multiple scenarios, not just in case Biden got sick or worse, but even if he won primaries, then dropped out, according to the authors. They, quote, wanted to make sure the party was ready for every possible circumstance. If Biden launched his campaign and then stepped aside before the primaries, if he won a bunch of primaries and then could not continue, if he secured enough delegates for winning the nomination but dropped out before winning a vote at the convention, and if he left a vacancy at the top of the ticket after taking the nomination. So, it's out there now, or it will be shortly in book form. Expect these questions, I guess, to continue swirling around that White House and the Democratic leadership, many of whom still remain the party as they struggle about a level of trust or lack thereof inside at the top of the Democratic Party. Cenk, you first.
Yeah, so to me, there's only one overwhelming lesson from all this. Do not trust people in power telling you how great and amazing leadership is and the people at the top are and how they're great men, and you shouldn't question them. You should just obey. You should just comply with all of their demands and requests of you. This is what they've been telling Democratic voters for my entire lifetime. Do not question Democratic leadership. They literally told me during the Obama years, Cenk, he's playing four-dimensional chess, you wouldn't understand. And what did they say that in response to? They said, no, don't criticize him about drilling off in the Gulf of Mexico. Oops, it blew up later. And don't criticize him for this, don't criticize him for that, because at the end, he's gonna do the magical jujitsu move where he passes all of our policy proposals, not just Obamacare. And how many of those did he pass after Obamacare? Approximately zero. There was never any secret plan. Like Alex Jones kept telling everybody on the right, oh, he's gonna put you in FEMA camps. And I always ask, are you in a FEMA camp? If you're not, then maybe you shouldn't believe Alex Jones. But at the same time, when people in Democratic leadership told you, don't worry, Obama's gonna pass every Democratic policy because he's playing four-dimensional chess, did he pass them? No. Did Joe Biden pass it? No. Okay, so did they do what their donors wanted? Yes, yes, yes. Lift the curtain back. Oh, right, that's the Wizard of Oz is not a magical great man. He's just a guy looking out for his interests and the interests of people who paid him. That's how the real world works. And on both sides. Ramesh, last word.
Yeah, I mean, we've spoken at length across many times when I've joined you all about the incoherence that the Democratic Party represents between what its donor class may wish for, which is sort of same old extractive capitalism, maybe some version of techno-feudalism with a couple of handouts here and there to kind of signal some sort of liberalism or some virtue. And the incoherence of that, because what working class, let alone progressive people, but just working class, working poor people want is at complete tension and at odds with what this sort of donor messaging, and people don't really want their intelligence to be insulted. And now, of course, we're facing an administration that is not just insulting many of our intelligence, but is attacking many U.S. citizens and lawful immigrants. And so we just got to face it for what it is. I am waiting and praying for someone to emerge, or some entity to emerge, that has a coherent vision that is populist and is actually aligned with what people in this country want and need. That's what I'm waiting for.
Hear, hear. We're all waiting for Godot. Okay.
Seems like Bernie and AOC are onto something, but I'm actually worried that this thing will pick up steam, and those in power on both sides of the aisle can't allow that to happen. They just cannot allow it to happen. Much more to come. We'll break for more of your comments and be right back.
All right, back on TYT. YouTube members section, Christina Lisa Brown says, Ramesh has a good heart and a fighter spirit and a teacher. He's amazing. Well, that's very nice. Akam Stazer says, good thing Kamala prepares some policies for the possibility of replacing Biden. Oh, wait. Also wrote in, bears don't usually make cat noises. When I mentioned Alred the bear, I was like, rah. All right, I amuse myself. All right, yes, you are correct. Natural Born Dragon says, I love Sharon. Strong women make me feel like there's hope in the world. Oh, here. Nothing better than strong women. Boomer Dragon Cat says, giving Ramesh his kudos, always one of my favorite panel members, so a lot of Ramesh love out there. Let's go to Kaj from TYT.com, says, longtime member, been following even longer after I found TYT on Best of the Left podcast. My stepfather is MAGA and very low information voter, internet illiterate, and admits he doesn't believe anything if it doesn't appear on television, cable and network news. That's hilarious. Although he does offer me hope. While he isn't criticizing Trump, he is muted on his actions. This small bit and Republican polls showing disapproval is all I have. Thank goodness for the Young Turks. Kaj, thanks for saying that, that's beautiful. Like, real quick, guys, look, part of the reason why I'm pretty much the only one who thinks that the Trump voters are gonna rebel to some degree at some point is, one is, as I've told you, they have now different media, so they're hearing different things. So if you hear from Dave Portnoy, you're not gonna think this Signalgate was good. In the old days, they had only one propaganda machine, Fox News, approved by Rupert Murdoch, all for billionaire interests. Now they have different media. But the other reason is they got taught to to not comply and to question. And for the first time now, they're beginning to question Trump and the Republicans. Back on TYT, Cenk, Ramesh, and Sharon. Sharon, who's got the next story?
More Republican regret, surprise, surprise.
This flag used to hang there. This was the flag Jennifer Piggott proudly hung outside her home during campaign 2024.
We had the flag, I had the shirt. I was a MAGA junkie.
You voted for Donald Trump.
I did.
Do you regret that vote?
Yes, I do.
You and others now. Self-described MAGA junkie Jennifer Piggott is having deep regrets now that she's lost her job with the federal government thanks to the Doge-led mass layoffs. According to CNN, at least 113,361 workers have been fired from federal agencies so far. Piggott was one of them, despite believing her job would be safe under Trump. Here's more from CNN.
Piggott was abruptly fired last month from the Treasury Department's Bureau of Fiscal Service, based here in Parkersburg, West Virginia. The reason given for the firings of 125 probationary employees at the Bureau? Poor performance.
I had my last review on the 31st of January, and I had the highest rating that you can get on a review, less than 21 days before I was terminated for my performance. I cried. It's scary, it's a really scary thing. And I was embarrassed.
There you have it. Piggott's on paid administrative leave now as the layoffs are being challenged in courts. So as of now, she's in limbo until the courts make a decision. But she is furious with Donald Trump, who she genuinely believed was just going to target waste, fraud, and abuse. She's crying, she's upset, she's said to be furious. Do you have sympathy for her seemingly having blinders on? But I know, Cenk, you and I have talked about that before, that not everybody's following every little thing. And so she could be genuinely surprised.
Look, I get it. Something about leopards eating faces, etc. There's a meme about it. But if you're laughing at her, I would counsel you don't. You can do anything you like. It's a free country. But we're progressives. We're supposed to look out for people we don't know. So this is the time not to go ha-ha. This is the time to comfort folks, to say, hey, listen, we got your back, and let's come to our side and let's fight together. Let's try to get your job back. Let's try to get our government back, etc. So for all the people that are Trump voters that have buyer's remorse, that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. They were misled by the media that they listened to or the politicians that they believed in. So now let's be good human beings and show them what we hope is the right way. That there is ways to cut, folks, but you would need to actually find waste, fraud, and abuse. Say, okay, that is an actual problem. That right there is abuse, right? You don't just come in and go, oh, you guys all came in, we didn't even look to see what you did, right or wrong. We just fired 113,000 people. And then the insult to injury is poor performance. No, it isn't. You summarily fired all the new people that had nothing to do with their performance, so stop lying.
Yeah, I would say the waste, fraud, and abuse that may be actually identified, that is actually real on any level by these Doge folks. First of all, they know next to nothing about how to identify such, since they are tech bros, generally speaking, who don't know anything about anything outside of tech, which is generally true in the higher rungs of the tech world. Someone who knows this personally. And I would say the waste, fraud, and abuse is a small fraction compared to the amount of critical public and social services that people rely upon to live that are going to be cut, all for a tax break for the bazillionaires, just like he did in the first term. So of course we should have so much sympathy and compassion and total support for her for being alienated and upset. And we should have a big tent and come join our progressive movement, because we are the ones who are honestly trying to change everything as it goes. Party or not, Democratic Party or not, we are a large big tent movement that brings everybody on board, because we want a really democratic country and a more equitable country and world.
Yeah, there's going to be more of Ms. Piggott, because Washington Post reporting too, between 8 and 50% other federal agencies are preparing to cut their workforces. 1 in 4 workers could be out at the Interior Department, 1 in 3 at the IRS, Housing and Urban Development, cutting half of its roughly 8,300 person staff. So no transparency there. Cenk, I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, I actually want to give the last word to the 4th clip here. Someone else fired by Trump. Let's watch.
Would you still have supported him?
I'm not sure that I would have. The way that it's been done, I'm for balancing the budget, that type of thing, but not.
Just about 1/4 of the health department, health agency is being cut down. Now that's quite a bit of, that's a big piece of change from the Doge brothers.
No, it's fantastic. I talked with Secretary Kennedy about an hour ago, and he is really excited about what they've unveiled today, the extent to which they've reorged the department, the number of people that they're able to let go and be able to find efficiencies at HHS, and so it's a really exciting what you're seeing.
So let me get this right. They didn't cut a single corporate subsidy, and they're not negotiating drug prices like they said they would. Instead, they're firing innocent people. I hate to say it, but told you. All right, in the bonus episode, we have 3 amazing stories for you guys, including a massive case of Donald Trump corruption, unreal corruption. Hit the join button below on YouTube, and we'll see you there.